I am a successful software developer in Seattle. For 5 years, my marriage to Jessica seemed perfect, or so I thought. We had built a beautiful life together, or at least that is what I believed, until I discovered those text messages between her and Adam, her ex-boyfriend. Nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that followed, or her audacious demand for half of everything I had worked for in our divorce. But things did not go as she planned. Before I reveal how I protected what I had worked for, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit subscribe to join thousands hearing real stories of betrayal and redemption, and stick around to find out how Jessica's greed backfired spectacularly. I met Jessica at my college friend Brian's wedding 7 years ago. She caught my attention immediately with her contagious laugh and intelligent conversation. We connected over our shared love for hiking the Pacific Northwest trails, exploring new restaurants and dreams of traveling the world together. Our romance moved quickly, and within 6 months, we were inseparable. During those early days, I was just beginning to climb the ladder at Skyward Tech, a growing software company where I had landed a position right out of college. My career was taking off, and Jessica supported me through the long hours while she completed her final year of law school. I supported her financially during this time, believing in her potential and our future together. After she graduated, we decided to make things official. I proposed during a sunset hike on Mount Rainier, her favorite spot. The wedding was everything we had dreamed of, intimate yet elegant at a vineyard outside the city. We bought our dream home in Queen Anne, an upscale Seattle neighborhood with stunning views of the Puget Sound. The 4-bedroom craftsman-style house cost nearly $1 million, which I paid for mostly from my savings and a generous bonus I had received for a successful product launch. Despite our agreement to share expenses proportionally based on our incomes, the reality looked quite different. I ended up covering about 80% of our costs, including the mortgage, utilities, and most vacations. Jessica struggled to find a permanent position at a law firm, jumping between temporary roles and expressing growing frustration about her career trajectory. She began comparing herself to her law school classmates who had secured positions at prestigious firms. As months passed, I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She became protective of her phone, changing passwords and taking calls in another room. She started staying out late, claiming to be studying for the bar exam with classmates or networking with potential employers. I wanted to believe her, especially when she would return home with stories about potential job leads or difficult study sessions. The first real indication that something was wrong came when Jessica started becoming increasingly distant. She would spend hours scrolling on her phone, barely engaging in conversations with me. When I would ask about her day, her answers became vague and short. Our once deep discussions about everything from politics to philosophy dwindled to surface-level exchanges about household logistics. One evening while paying bills, I noticed several unfamiliar charges on our shared credit card statement. There were restaurant bills from places we had never visited together, and a charge from a jewelry store for a men's watch. When questioned, Jessica claimed the restaurants were business lunches, and the watch was supposedly a gift for her father's upcoming birthday. Her explanations seemed plausible, but something felt off. Then came the discovery that Jessica had reconnected with Adam, her college boyfriend, on social media. I accidentally saw a notification pop up on her laptop when she asked me to check an email for her. The message preview was enough to raise my concerns. "Great seeing you yesterday. Let's do it again soon." When confronted, Jessica dismissed it as innocent. "We're just catching up as old friends," she insisted. "He's going through a tough time and needs someone to talk to." I wanted to trust my wife, so I accepted her explanation despite the uncomfortable feeling in my gut. Looking back, I should have trusted my instincts, but love has a way of blinding you to the obvious. In an attempt to reignite our relationship, I planned a surprise weekend getaway to a luxury resort in Napa Valley. I arranged for her favorite wines, spa treatments, and dinner at an exclusive restaurant. Jessica seemed appreciative but remained distracted throughout the trip, constantly checking her phone and making excuses to step away for calls. I also initiated weekly date nights, trying everything from cooking classes to concerts, hoping to recapture our earlier connection. Despite my efforts, Jessica became increasingly critical of our lifestyle. She complained about the house needing renovations, compared our vacations unfavorably to those of her friends, and made comments about my work hours being too long. Nothing seemed to satisfy her anymore. She spent more and more time on social media, obsessively following influencers and friends who showcased lavish lifestyles, designer clothes, and exotic vacations. The truth revealed itself in the most painful way possible. I had been on a 3-day business trip to San Francisco presenting our newest software to potential investors. The meetings had gone exceptionally well, and we closed a major deal that would significantly expand our company. I was excited to share the news with Jessica, imagining celebrating together. My return flight was scheduled for Thursday evening, but severe food poisoning from a questionable seafood lunch forced me to change my plans. After spending a miserable night in the hotel bathroom, I decided to catch an early morning flight home to recover in my own bed. I did not call Jessica to tell her about the change, wanting to surprise her with both my early return and the good news about the deal. When my rideshare pulled up to our house around 11 in the morning, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in our driveway, a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better days. My first thought was that perhaps Jessica had a friend over or had hired someone to help with the house. But as I approached our front door, I heard music playing and laughter coming from inside. Using my key, I quietly entered and called out for Jessica. There was a sudden silence followed by hurried movements upstairs. My heart began pounding as I climbed the stairs, already suspecting what I might find. The bedroom door was partially open, and I heard Jessica's panicked whisper, "You need to leave now." I pushed the door open to find Jessica frantically putting on clothes, while a man I recognized from photos as Adam was gathering his things. The scene was unmistakable. The disheveled bed, the wine glasses on the nightstand, the guilt on Jessica's face that quickly transformed into defiance. "This is not what it looks like," she started, but even she seemed to recognize the absurdity of that statement given the circumstances. Adam, looking uncomfortable, but not particularly remorseful, slipped past me with a mumbled "sorry man" and hurried down the stairs. I was too shocked to stop him, my entire focus fixed on my wife and the crumbling remains of our marriage. The confrontation that followed revealed the affair had been going on for at least 6 months. Jessica had reconnected with Adam shortly after he moved back to Seattle, following a failed business venture in Portland. What started as innocent coffee catch-ups quickly evolved into a full-blown affair. She had been meeting him during her supposed networking events and study sessions. The betrayal went beyond the physical. As I later discovered through bank statements and credit card bills, Jessica had been giving Adam money, helping him pay rent, and even buying him gifts, including that watch I had questioned earlier. She had been using our joint funds to support her broke ex-boyfriend, while he supposedly tried to get back on his feet after his business failure. I packed a bag and checked into a hotel that same day, unable to stay in the house that now felt tainted by their betrayal. The emotional devastation was unlike anything I had experienced before, a mixture of heartbreak, humiliation, and rage that left me sleepless for days. The initial shock gave way to a period of emotional numbness. I moved through the following weeks on autopilot, focusing on work during the day and staring at hotel room ceilings at night. I ignored Jessica's calls and messages, needing space to process what had happened. When we finally did speak, Jessica tried to shift blame onto me. "You were never home," she claimed. "You were always working or thinking about work." I felt neglected and unappreciated. She portrayed herself as the victim, suggesting that my dedication to building our financial security had somehow forced her into another man's arms. Her attempts to rewrite our history only added to my pain. My friend Derek, concerned about my well-being, convinced me to look through the messages on our shared cloud account, which Jessica had apparently forgotten about. What I found shattered any lingering doubts about the nature of their relationship. Jessica and Adam had been planning a future together, discussing how they would be together once she figured out the financial situation with me. She had been systematically gathering information about my assets, taking photos of financial documents, and sharing details about my income and investments with Adam. The financial betrayal went deeper than I initially realized. Jessica had been making regular transfers from our joint account to a separate account I knew nothing about. Over the course of 8 months, she had diverted nearly $50,000, much of which had been given to Adam to help him start yet another business venture, a mobile app development company that existed mostly on paper. Around this time, mutual friends began approaching me with uncomfortable revelations. Jessica had been bad-mouthing me to anyone who would listen, painting a picture of me as controlling and emotionally unavailable. She had been laying groundwork for the narrative she would later use in divorce proceedings, portraying herself as a supportive spouse who had sacrificed her career for mine. Perhaps most disturbing was discovering that Jessica had been sharing confidential information about my business ventures with Adam. He had apparently been considering how to create competing products or services based on inside information about what my company was developing. The woman I had trusted completely had violated not just our marriage but potentially put my professional work at risk. As these revelations accumulated, my heartbreak began transforming into anger. The woman I had loved and supported for years had not only betrayed our vows, but had been actively plotting against my interests. This realization was the turning point that allowed me to begin fighting back. 3 weeks after the discovery, I was served with divorce papers at my office, causing a scene that mortified me in front of my colleagues. Jessica's filing was aggressive, demanding half of all assets, including my company, shares, our home investment accounts, and even family heirlooms that had been passed down from my grandparents. Her claims were audacious. She argued that she had been instrumental to my success, that her emotional support and sacrifice had enabled my career advancement. She claimed that her difficulty in establishing her own law career was because she had prioritized our marriage over her professional development, a narrative completely at odds with reality. She demanded not just the house but ongoing support that would essentially fund the lifestyle she and Adam had been planning. I soon discovered that Jessica had hired Martin Blackwood, a divorce attorney known for his aggressive tactics and high-profile cases. She had paid his substantial retainer using money from our joint account, essentially using my own money to fund her attack against me. As if the financial assault was not enough, Jessica attempted to access my personal email accounts and business records. I received security notifications about login attempts from unknown devices. When those attempts failed, she contacted my assistant claiming she needed access to my calendar for a surprise party she was planning. Thankfully, my assistant was aware of our separation and declined to help. The threats became more explicit as Jessica realized I was not going to roll over. Through her attorney, she suggested that she had personal information that could damage my reputation with investors and clients if made public. The implication was clear: give her what she wants, or she would attempt to destroy what I had built. She also began a campaign to turn our friends against me. She told elaborate stories about non-existent affairs on my part, claimed I had hidden assets, and even suggested I had been verbally abusive. Some mutual friends, uncertain what to believe, distanced themselves from both of us. Others, who had seen our relationship up close, remained skeptical of her claims, but felt caught in the middle of an uncomfortable situation. Facing this coordinated attack on my life and livelihood, I knew I needed professional help. I hired Laura Sawyer, one of the top divorce attorneys in the state, known for her strategic approach and impressive track record. Unlike Jessica's attorney, who relied on intimidation and theatrics, Laura was calm, methodical, and devastatingly effective. The most important thing now is to protect your assets while we build our case, Laura advised during our first meeting. We need to document everything, especially evidence of her affair and financial misconduct. We began by securing all my premarital assets. I gathered documentation proving which properties, investments, and savings had existed before our marriage. Laura helped me secure my business interests, working with my company's legal team to ensure my shares and intellectual property were protected. We documented every instance of Jessica's financial infidelity, creating a paper trail of her transfers to Adam and unauthorized use of our joint funds. Laura also suggested hiring a private investigator to document the ongoing relationship between Jessica and Adam, which would help counter any claims Jessica might make about the affair being a one-time indiscretion born of neglect. Throughout this process, I struggled emotionally. The tactical nature of divorce proceedings felt foreign to me, at odds with the person I had always considered myself to be. There were nights I lay awake questioning whether fighting so hard was worth it, whether it might be easier to give Jessica what she wanted and move on. But each new discovery of her deception reinforced my resolve to stand my ground. 6 weeks into the divorce proceedings, Laura called with news that changed everything. "I have been reviewing your financial documents," she said, "and I noticed something interesting from around the time of your marriage. Did you and Jessica sign a prenuptial agreement?" The question hit me like a thunderbolt. In the chaos of the betrayal and its aftermath, I had completely forgotten about the prenup. My parents, who had built a successful small business and seen friends lose everything in divorces, had insisted I protect myself before marriage. They had even paid for the legal fees as a wedding gift of sorts. Jessica had initially resisted the idea, claiming it showed a lack of faith in our relationship, but ultimately signed the agreement believing it was simply a formality that would never come into play. The document clearly protected my premarital assets and business interests, specifying that company shares, intellectual property, and future growth of existing investments would remain solely mine in the event of a divorce. When Laura presented the prenuptial agreement in our next negotiation meeting, Jessica's reaction was priceless. Her face drained of color as she conferred frantically with her attorney. She clearly had forgotten about the document or believed it would not hold up in court. "This is not valid," she sputtered when she finally found her voice. "I was pressured into signing it. I didn't understand what I was signing." Her attorney looked considerably less confident than he had minutes earlier. Jessica's attempts to invalidate the prenuptial agreement became increasingly desperate. She claimed she had signed under duress, that she had not had proper legal representation, and even that I had promised to tear it up after a few years as a show of commitment. None of these claims were true, and the carefully executed document reviewed by attorneys representing both of us stood solid against her attacks. As Jessica realized the prenup would likely be upheld, her behavior became increasingly erratic. She showed up at my workplace unannounced, creating a scene in the lobby until security escorted her out. She left rambling, threatening voicemails at all hours of the night. She even contacted my parents, trying to convince them to pressure me into a more generous settlement. Her most alarming move was attempting to frame me for emotional abuse. She began telling friends and family that she had been walking on eggshells throughout our marriage, afraid of my explosive temper. Those who knew me well immediately recognized these claims as fiction, as I had always prided myself on remaining calm during disagreements. I discovered that Jessica had accessed my email account by guessing a password I had not updated. She had been reading my private communications, including those with my attorney, giving her insight into our strategy. This violation led me to strengthen all my digital security and document the intrusion for court purposes. The threats to my professional reputation intensified. Jessica contacted one of our biggest clients, claiming she had concerns about the project we were developing for them. Fortunately, my relationship with the client was strong enough that they immediately informed me about the strange call. As these attacks continued, our circle of friends divided further. Some people, tired of the drama, stepped away entirely. Others quietly reached out to offer support but wished to remain publicly neutral. A few close friends stood firmly by my side, providing both emotional support and statements, countering Jessica's false narratives. Jessica's financial situation grew increasingly precarious as the legal battle continued. Her attorney required additional retainer payments as the case dragged on. Adam, who had initially promised to take care of her once things were settled, became less reliable as the prospect of a windfall dimmed. Credit card statements showed she was accumulating significant debt. The most shocking discovery came when my private investigator found evidence that Jessica and Adam had been researching residency requirements in countries with no extradition treaties with the United States. They had apparently been considering fleeing the country if the financial judgment went against them, possibly with whatever assets Jessica could secure, before the divorce was finalized. After months of legal maneuvering, our case finally went before Judge Eleanor Richardson, a no-nonsense jurist known for her sharp insights and low tolerance for games. The courtroom was tense as both sides presented their arguments. Jessica's attorney painted her as a devoted wife who had sacrificed her career prospects to support my ambitions, deserving of half of everything we had accumulated during the marriage. He downplayed the affair as a momentary lapse in judgment, resulting from my emotional neglect. Laura methodically dismantled this narrative, presenting evidence of Jessica's long-term affair, financial misconduct, and attempts to undermine my business. She demonstrated how Jessica had contributed minimally to our household finances while benefiting fully from my success. Finally, she presented the valid prenuptial agreement, which clearly protected my assets. Judge Richardson's ruling was decisive. She upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety, noting that Jessica had been represented by competent counsel during its creation and that there was no evidence of coercion. She specifically cited Jessica's financial misconduct as justification for denying any claims beyond what the prenup stipulated. "The court finds the respondent's behavior particularly troubling," Judge Richardson stated. "Evidence suggests a calculated effort to extract maximum financial benefit through deception and manipulation." In the end, Jessica received only what she had brought into the marriage, which amounted to her personal belongings, her car, and a small retirement account from a brief period of employment before law school. The house investments and business interests remained mine. As the judgment was read, Jessica sat motionless, disbelief etched across her face. Adam, who had attended the hearing, expecting to celebrate a windfall, slipped out of the courtroom before proceedings concluded. I later learned he stopped returning Jessica's calls that same day. My feelings were mixed. There was vindication, certainly, but also a profound sadness for what could have been, and the years wasted on someone who had seen me as a means to an end rather than a partner. The months following the divorce were a period of slow healing. I began seeing Dr. Marcus, a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma, who helped me process the complex emotions I was experiencing. The anger, hurt, and sense of foolishness gradually gave way to acceptance and a determination to rebuild. What happened says more about her character than your judgment, Doctor. Marcus reminded me during a particularly difficult session. The capacity to trust is a strength, not a weakness, even when that trust is betrayed. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the worst of the divorce battle, grateful for those who had stood by me. My parents, who had witnessed my pain from across the country, flew out for 2 weeks to help me settle into my new reality. Their presence was a powerful reminder of what genuine love and support looked like. Work became both a distraction and a source of satisfaction. I threw myself into new projects, finding that the focus required helped quiet the noise in my mind. My company continued to thrive, and the professional reputation Jessica had tried to damage remained intact. I could not bear to stay in the house we had shared, with its memories and betrayals lingering in every room. I sold it for a significant profit and purchased a modern apartment in a different neighborhood, designing the space to reflect this new chapter in my life. The clean lines, open spaces, and spectacular views helped me leave the past behind. New friendships developed naturally as I began to re-engage with life. I joined a hiking group, rediscovering my love for the mountains that had initially connected Jessica and me. There was healing in reclaiming these experiences for myself, creating new memories to replace the tainted ones. The hardest part of recovery was learning to trust again, not just others, but my own judgment. Each time I met someone new, a voice in the back of my mind questioned their motives. Dr. Marcus helped me develop healthier skepticism without succumbing to cynicism, teaching me that vulnerability required courage, but was essential for genuine connection. Looking back at this chapter of my life, from the vantage point of 2 years later, I can see how this painful experience transformed me in unexpected ways. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy me instead revealed strengths I never knew I possessed. I learned that protecting yourself is not contrary to loving someone. Setting boundaries, maintaining financial independence, and trusting your instincts are not signs of relationship failure, but of healthy self-respect. Love should never require the surrender of your security or identity. The adversity revealed my resilience. When everything familiar was stripped away, I discovered an inner fortitude that carried me through the darkest days and eventually into the light. This confidence has permeated every aspect of my life, from professional challenges to personal relationships. My approach to trust has been fundamentally reshaped. I no longer give it automatically, but allow it to develop naturally through consistent actions over time. Paradoxically, the relationships I have formed since the divorce feel more authentic because they are built on this foundation of earned rather than assumed trust. Perhaps the most surprising outcome was finding peace through forgiveness, not for Jessica's benefit but for my own. Carrying anger and resentment was exhausting, a continued tax on my happiness long after she was gone from my life. Letting go did not mean excusing her actions, but refusing to let them control my future. Today, I am grateful for the lessons, though I would never have chosen the way they were delivered. I have built a life that feels authentically mine, defined not by what was taken from me, but by what I have created since. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to unexpected growth? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of resilience and redemption. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that pain can transform into strength. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted makes space for what you truly need.